Yes.
He took
Ready? Call the meeting to order.
Schmidt.
Yeah.
Alt.
Here.
Bill. Curtis.
Yes.
Winden. Raymond.
Present.
Hanson.
Yeah. Okay. Any public comment? No public comment. Randy, you're up.
As usual, January was pretty quiet, so I have nothing to report there. Monday was good.
Yeah. Hey, Susan.
We're going to be starting the open enrollment process for the AFLAC products, which are the voluntary food products that the employees can purchase. We'll be getting together with our AFLAC rep, Misha, and then Anita and Amanda on the 25th of February to set what products are going to be presented for this open enrollment, and then the open enrollment meetings will start March 30th, the week of March 30th. That's all I have right now.
Okay, thank you. Anybody got any questions? Thank you.
See you guys later.
The Markman heads. Please?
Nothing.
Nothing?
Not even at the book meeting.
Ida?
My report for January is the calls for service. We had 1,560 total calls. 1,019 was police calls, 112 fire calls, and 396 ambulance calls. 286 additional change of quarters. And what a change of quarters is like when IMH has a call out from Watsika, their ambulance squad will come over and cover, like in Crescent City. When Riverside has a call out, their squad will come from Bradley, or Otto will come down to cover that district. So that's what change quarters is. It's simply a switching of ambulances to make sure that districts are covered. So there was, like I said, 286 of those. We had 23 corner calls and 10 patrol calls. We entered 51 warrants in our system, and we have 2,399 wanted people in Iroquois County as far as what we've entered into the system. So those are out there. We received about 40% of our calls were landline calls and 60% were wireless. So we're slowly seeing, obviously, wireless is taking over as far as landlines, the type of calls. We're still down one telecommunicator. I went to social media to try to get a replacement for that. So we thought we had the last one was going to work out, but her mother ended up not being able to babysit for her, so it was going to cost her babysitting, and it wasn't going to be worth her. She was going to take more of her salary out with babysitting what it cost. Telecommunicators at 136 hours of overtime. I worked 68 hours of overtime last month. I got the ICG report turned in. We have, at the end of January, we have to turn a report in to my Commerce Commission that says what our ratio is as far as error ratio, which was 0. It tells our population, it tells our line counts, and it shows it went down. Was it 460, Dan? Does that sound right? I said the last meeting?
Yeah,
I think we lost 460 landlines in the last year, in 2014. So that continues to cut down on our revenue. I've been working on with the legislative committee. We're still working on allowable expenses. They actually have a 911 advisory board meeting this morning at 10:30. And one of the things that the legislation is trying to do, and it's State Representative John Bradley is the chairman of our committee, and he is really, it appears to be, he's like anti-911, so it's not too good of a person to have in charge of that. And one of the things that they're really seem to be working with at the state level is putting expenses back on the county. As far as they're trying to say that our money that we take in should be used for 911 and 911 only, and they're saying that some of our expenses that we're spending 911 funds on are non-911 associated, I guess is the way to put it. So yesterday in our conference call that we had, Ralph from Champaign County and also myself said one of the things that we've heard from you guys is if you have to continue to support 911 at some level, in turn that takes away from, patrols is what I used as an example, that we in turn are going to have less patrols on the road, and that our legislatures need to really stop and think about our funding in the way that it's used, that if you take it away from us, it's going to trickle on down, and the counties or the villages or whatever the case may be are the ones that are going to have to pick up the cost. And I know Derek has talked to you in the past as far as Champaign County. They're an entity that's put in a lot of money towards their dispatch center. And so Ralph is definitely fighting because I believe if the Savannah puts in $500,000 a year to the dispatch center, and so they're saying that we're completely, totally taken away from them, and we need to look at a revenue to possibly make 911 funds cover what the dispatch centers do. So that's something that we're trying to work on. They're also wondering if the funding system, that's the way it's set up, is it set up adequately that it's funded? And as an example, Will County gets $3 million, over $3 million from wireless on a yearly basis. We get not quite $150,000. So by that, is that an equal thing? There, we go by population, we actually go by where your cell phone bill is sent, and that's the money you get. But is that appropriation, is that correct? Does it need to be set up differently so that one entity isn't getting $3 million? Because we all have to have the same equipment. We have to have the same equipment to be able to dispatch. We have to have the same equipment to be able to get 911 calls. So we all have the base equipment. So should that be rearranged a little bit that also helps us less populated areas compared to the more populated areas? So that's something. And like Kankakee, they get about $550,000 a year for wireless. Again, we get $150,000. So the city of Chicago, they get $3.90 per cell phone. That's something that you'll probably never be able to touch because of the power of the bees are up there. But is it fair that they get $3.90 a cell phone when we get 72 cents? How fair is that to it? So it's different things like that. They're also working on the statewide network for Next Generation 911. That's a network that we'll be sharing throughout the state of Illinois to be able to do the things that are going to be required here shortly with Next Generation 911, which one of them is text messaging, which we're starting to see a lot in the news media because other states are starting to pick up on text messaging. And also they're working on consolidation of systems. Like Will County, they have several dispatch centers up there, and do they need 10 or 15 dispatch centers? Can they not make it into one? Because one thing they want to do is make sure that at least start out with one per county, and then if we need to add to that, if they need to, maybe 2, maybe 3. And that's something also Kankakee's looking at, because they have 3 dispatch centers up there. So they're looking at possibly, if that's like an issue with consolidation, consolidated down to 2, but then you get into politics and power and all that good stuff. So the advisory board is working. Like I said, they got the 911 advisory board is meeting this morning at 10:30. I'm on the legislative committee, and we're still working on it. They're trying to divide out, with the new position that they have as a statewide 911 administrator, they're trying to divide out what their responsibility will be compared to what ITC does today, to try to blend those things as far as funding issues and the networking issues and that type of thing. So there's a lot of, this is the time of year for legislation, and this is the time of year to try to work to get I've been talking to Susan. We're going to try to get our state rep Bennett and also Jason Berkman to attend. We have a 911 coordinators meeting on the 19th of this month. We're going to try to get him there, and we're also working on possibly getting Lieutenant Governor there to see if we can get her to talk to us to try to get some thought processes in so people understand 911, exactly what we do and exactly what our funding issues are. So we're trying to also get that set up to try to work the legislation as best we can. But our scare right now is with everybody is that they're going to start putting more on the local level, and you don't understand how that's going to work.
Because our ending numbers for last year was less than 1%, or less than 1% under our budget. That don't give you a lot of money.
Exactly. And that's one thing Ralph and I were trying to explain yesterday. We were hoping that they take today to the advisory board is, we cut it from here, but where's it going to come from there? And so it's going to be interesting.
Seems like they're trying to rob Peter to pay Paul, but yet when they change what's being done now, they're going to change everybody else to rob Peter to pay Paul.
Right, and there is some legislation also that Senator Berkman is trying to do, and I'm going to work with him a little bit on that, is call boxes. Whenever our 911 system goes down, which I probably shouldn't even talk about it because it's been a while since we've had that, but our fire departments have to man the call boxes. And when they man the call boxes, they actually have to drive a vehicle to the local phone office, and they sit in their trucks, and there's a box on the outside that you have a key, and you open that up and you plug 2 telephones in that, and then they become the 911 for that telephone exchange. So like when Seeker Fire would go up here, and they'd be the ones that would do the 432 exchange, and any 911 calls that come in, they would take them, they'd relay them to us, and then we would be able to do the dispatching from there. And they're trying to, over at Tazewell County, they've been trying to work with Jason Berkman to try to get those phone offices moved, or those lines moved into the fire department. We do have 2 or 3 fire departments in Iroquois County that have that, simply because they have the connections to be able to get that done, but they want the ICC to pay for it. in our thought process, if you make the ICC pay for it, they're going to take the money away from us. And so that Senate Bill 41 is something that we may end up challenging, simply because we understand what the fire departments are saying, but we also know that somebody's going to get the money from somewhere, and it's probably going to come back from us, and then we're losing funding again. So those are the different things that we're working on as of today.
Thank you. Anybody got questions? Eric, you got anything?
Not right now, no.
How's things in the tax world?
As I reported to tax Tuesday, we have rolled to 15 assessment year, which is very good. And then after tax, I got back to my office and had an email from the state with some questions I had on our final abstract. We answered them, so now the final multiplier should come 4 weeks from now, which would be outstanding, so that's fine. And same as NIDA, we're working with our legislative lobbyists, because once the stuff has been introduced, it's just way out there. They're just trying to take raise all the exemptions even higher. And then also, it's very veteran conscious now, obviously because of the climate we're in. And so we'll just have to see what plays that, and all it does is shift the loading from one part of the sector to another. And we are actually compiling a study now with the Department of Revenue. What is the overall effect that homestead exemptions have on tax burden? And we're pretty close to getting some results on that, so I'm just really very interested to see what comes from that. So,
Kind of interesting. There's no free ride, but nobody seems to get that.
and they just said, oh, we'll just raise the homestead exemption to 8,000 and the senior exemption to 7, and just keep adding on, and shifts the burden, and we'll see how, and there's a bunch of other stuff already proposed legislatively wise, so just watch that. On the zoning side, nothing, we're pretty quiet, because, winter. We are going to have I'll talk to zoning tomorrow about it, we are going to have a rezoning at the end of February. So, zoning board of appeal will be in the month, so, and it's for a new house, so that's all good.
Thank you. Anybody got any questions? Eric, you got anything?
Well, sort of my general proceedings since the last round of committee meetings for the county. I visited 10 local jurisdictions. I've been on my countywide tour to visit the local elected officials. I visited 10 of them, some townships, villages. I held the FirstNet informational session after the last full board county meeting. So if you're there, if you have any questions about that, come talk to me and tell you what that's all about. Red Cross for the state of Illinois reorganized their regions, and thus a couple of new regional disaster relief coordinators for Iroquois County, and I've met with those two women. They talked about what they can provide for Iroquois County in the event of a disaster. I attended the monthly Mavis meeting for Mitchell Fire. I met up with the Iroquois County Amateur Radio Club on the same day. They're in the process of reorganizing themselves, but they're eager to help out with radio communications, so hopefully do some drills and exercises for them in the future. Let's see. NIDA was kind enough to work with me on some of my radio equipment that's stored in the basement of the jail house. Having some problems with that, and it's hard to access, understandably. So maybe in the future I'll work on moving those radios to my office and, with permission, running antennas up to the roof of the courthouse. However, that's something that I haven't put a ton of thought into yet. But that would be better for separation of communications that way. If something were to happen to the main communications room, then we would still have radio equipment able to reach out. So I've started working on that, and there'll be more on that in the future. LEPC applications have been sent to the state, expecting letters back from them sometime this week or next week. If not, I will be disappointed. I've begun revising the emergency operations plan. It needs to be updated and it's mandated by the state to update that every couple of years. So I've begun reading through that and revising that. I took another online course, and I created a multi-year training exercise plan for Emergency Management Agency. This goes over the exercises that I'm hoping to have over the next few years. I'm not comfortable releasing that yet because I haven't talked to the organizations I'd like to involve yet. But if you have questions about it, feel free to come ask. That's about it.
Health, public health.
Public Health is doing fine. We gave a full report to the Health Committee on Tuesday. Don't have anything new other than to say that we were given some conflicting information. IDPH requires that Health Department submit an annual report within 90 days after the end of a fiscal year, because we only were in operation from July 1st through November 30th, which was only a 5-month period. They told us that we really didn't have to do that, but we could if we wanted to. So I went forward, and we're creating an annual report that we will release probably in the next week to the public. It'll be available on our website. It will have all the services that we provided, similar to the summary report that I did to the Health Committee. And it will also have financial information on that. And you took our balance sheet, which you guys all saw at, from the end of the fiscal year, November 30th, and you transferred that information onto a format that the state wanted. So she spent some time doing that for me to make sure that was the way that the state wanted it. So I am very appreciative of that, and I know that took some time, and very grateful to do that. So we hope in the next week to have that ready to go out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Yvonne, what do you think?
I don't have anything to read for.
Okay. Tom?
Nothing much. We're hopefully within the next couple weeks buying a car for the firm, but that's coming out of our special fund. That's really the only thing we're moving forward with right now. So that's it.
Okay. That's all our departments. The audit.
The audit's moving along very, very well. I just talked to Hope this morning. She called about 8:30 or 20 to 9. The financials are all put together, the draft copy, which is really good and really best turnaround I've seen since I've been here. Field work went well. They're the way it usually goes. Lots and lots of questions, a lot of research. I get pretty frustrated by the end of the 2 weeks, but we made it through. We're going to have a few audit adjustments, a few things that were my mistakes. I just forgot to do things like the ECIAAA payment that was approved in January. I should have accrued that back to last fiscal year, not thinking, oh my gosh, that relates to the prior fiscal year. So things like that. So there'll be some of those. But Hope is very happy with where we're at right now. It goes to Clifton Larson Allen's first level of review on Saturday. Right now we're scheduling that Hope will be here in April. If things go very well, maybe March, but that would really be pushing it for it to be all through their levels of review in time for her to present the final results in April. But it'll probably be done by April, but we don't want to commit to that yet. So it'll be March or April. And then we talked about this morning the agreed upon procedures that the state requires for the health department related to the granting. They're agreed upon procedures. It's not a full-fledged audit. So different technicality in terms of the procedures that they go through. The one that they did last summer was for year ending 6/30/13, and they've always historically been done like a year in arrears. So she asked me this morning, could they start working on the one for June 30th, 14. And so I said, yeah, go ahead. All the paperwork was given to them when they were out here this summer. So there should be some minimal interaction with your group, but for the most part, it should be pretty self-explanatory. And she was thinking, last year's cost us $2,095, and she thought for 630.14, because the stuff was so much better organized. Ed, that had worked at FIPHD those last few months, their outsourced accountant, had organized things in a way she thought they could really cut down. She said she's cognizant of the fact that FIPHD is done, and she'll try and keep the hours to a minimum. So I think that's it. The other thing, I did give you a couple things. This is your standard report monthly, where it's every department and an overview. That's as of January, so fiscal 2015. The single sheet is the final for 2014, and I laid several around the outside as well. That is after all the audit adjustments. The one I passed out at the December meeting was preliminary. We didn't have all the accruals in. So I didn't actually get to public health. So usually public health is on the back, but I ran out of time this morning. But this is general fund and highway and 911 and joint dispatch. So you can kind of see where we ended up there. If you look, and this is what Kevin alluded to, in total, if you look at the variance column over or under budget, the general fund in total is $48,777 under budget for the year. That is less than 1%, 0.9%, which Kevin said that's really good. It is really good, but it's very, very tight, and we have to be aware of that. We are budgeting so tight now, there is no leeway for anything. Things like someone retiring, say, in the sheriff's department, they had 2 of those this year. There are a lot of extra expenses when their PTO is paid out upon retirement. We're budgeting so tight that you have something like that happen, it can kick you over budget. So we got to keep, I just want to warn you about that, tell you that we're doing a good job, but we're very tight, very tight. So do you guys understand? I guess I always assumed you understand what this is telling you. Do you see what, okay, and I take the expenses, if it's personnel related, so I take things like salaries, but then 911 and highway, they have expense in there for, let's say, paying back group insurance. I include that. Transfers to the FICA funds, I include those. Training costs, I include those. And I put that in services. Also in services is anything contracted out. So, like our animal control officer, who's an outsourced, or the area-wide costs, that's all labor costs that, for the IT support, that's included in services. And then materials is obviously just kind of supplies, materials, and equipment is really only in highway and 911. Nobody else really has those. But those are the 3 categories the state talks about. If you look at a lot of the Attorney General opinions about expenses and the authority of elected officials to manage, they always reference these 3 categories. So that's the way I like to track it, just so we're watching in those kind of categories that they reference in the opinions.
I hate to sound like Scrooge all the time, but I think I'm good at it. But I mean, you think about it, we wouldn't have had a balanced budget without Gloria retiring. And now we're down, 40-some thousand, 48,000. It's, we gotta watch. We're doing all right. We just gotta watch. We gotta be cognizant of everything as close as we can, because it's tight. Wouldn't take a lot to look bad. We got a lot of places to put money. Okay, so that's everybody? Anybody look at the claims?
Is this the year that we put out for bids for new auditing? When are we going to do that?
Is this, Susan asked if this is the year we put out for bids for new auditors.
Will be, probably, we need to address that coming up, I believe.
Because we really should give the firms time to put together a decent proposal instead of throwing a canned one together.
And I think
A canned proposal.
one of the things I want us
It's
to
up to
think
them.
about as we look at that is giving a multi-year contract. The contracts, the engagement letters with Clifton Larson Allen were 3 1-year, single year. Each one was for 1 year. Well, there's a whole lot of upfront costs that first year while they learn your organization, and if all you're allowing is a 1-year contract, they're going to put all those costs in. And once they've got that base, you know your costs aren't going to go down. So GFOA, one of the professional organizations they recommend giving out a 5-year contract to start with. So then they're spreading those costs over 5 years. You're starting with a lower base, and it's a way to manage your audit expense.
Boy, if you got a bad one, you got a long-term bad one.
We put in
Well,
the
you have
caveat.
to, right. You have to do your due diligence in understanding whether or not they do, and that is one of the other things. You want to make sure that you have an audit firm that understands governmental. There are a lot of audit firms, and anybody can say they can audit, and they can legally. But you want to, during your bid opening, you don't want to just look at the cost. You want to know what other government entities they audit, so whether or not they're familiar with what's required. Now, I have to say I ran into somebody in a professional organization in Kankakee who works for one of the bigger firms. It's a local firm in Kankakee, and I mentioned that we would be looking at putting it out for bids this year. Very interested. Her immediate question was whether or not we publish a standard audit report or a full CAFR. A full CAFR is certain guidelines that are in your audit. It's a bigger, thicker audit, and that is what we prepare. The fact that she knew that right out of the bat tells me she knows government accounting pretty well. So you look for things like that to determine whether or not they are an experienced government auditor.
Well, we'll have to decide something as a group.
I would think the sooner that we send the message out that we're entertaining the idea for request.
What do you think the difference in savings would be from a 3-year contract to?
Well, we only did 1-year contract with Clifton Larson Allen. Oh, are you saying the difference between
A 3 and a 5. You recommended a 5. I'm thinking
3?
3 should give them a little bit of extra room to defray that initial cost. I don't know. Hell, I'm married 38 years, and my wife likes to renew every year. So, keeps me on my toes.
Renew what? I'm sorry. That just flew out of my mouth.
She just doesn't like that long-term thing. Kind of funny when you think about it.
What you can do when you ask for bids is ask for both a 3-year or a 5-year.
We will.
And then you can determine what your difference would be.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea. Because how long did our other one last, our other auditor? They were here
Before?
for,
They were here a long time.
yeah, a lot longer than this.
Oh, they were actually the ones from Kankakee.
Yeah, and I don't think that they
Not-
even had a contract. We just kind of just had them.
Really?
Did we have a contract with them? Russell, you were on, I don't think we did. I think we just kind
We did annual contracts, I think, with them. I don't think we've ever had more than a 1-year
Mhm.
signed piece of paper going forward.
Well, in fact, I'm remembering historically where there was a huge debate over not keeping an auditor for a long time. I cannot remember if the argument was to change annually.
Oh, no. You would never want to change.
This was an issue before you came on board, and that banks and things did that. Does anybody else remember that? I remember it, that we were supposed to, thank you, Brett, I didn't want to think I was crazy.
I was thinking it was
That
3
we were
years.
supposed to be switching auditors frequently so nobody became too comfortable.
Well, in private industry, the rule was always 5 to 8, that you really don't want more, but
The
not every
discussions
year.
here were far less than that. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I'm just saying that that was historically the discussion.
Yeah.
Okay,
3 to 5,
it was an
I don't know.
argument. I was trying to be diplomatic.
It takes a couple of years to get warm and fuzzy, and then after that, one more year, and after the warm and fuzzy, usually 3-4 years.
Well, and I mean, we see it with Clifton Larson Allen, and Joel and I talked about that. He's not here this morning. But, you know, it's funny because every year that I've been here, it is pickier and pickier and pickier. It takes a while for them to learn, okay, they got the general, they're not going to dive into as much detail because they're not going to have the time that first year. They were picking at Joel for $1,200 and at me for $100. I mean, literally, they were going down to very, very detailed questions. Now they've got comfortable with all the overview, and I've got the hang of what I can give them when they walk in the door that will support materially our balances. I think you want them for a couple of years so they really dig in to some of that lower level detail. It's good to have them check. You know, they wanted, this year one of the new things was they wanted copies of every single claim for every payment made to me and made to Mary Ann and made to Mindy. Every expense reimbursement they wanted to see. They never asked for that before, but that's really a good thing. Not that, you know, $100 a month in expense reimbursement, I get it, a material misstatement, but it goes back to making sure you've got the controls in place that they want to test for. That's a really good thing, and I never thought about it before. Well, they add little things like that, and as it takes them less time at this level to get comfortable with the numbers, they can start digging down deeper and deeper, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's not just a drive-by to that.
Yeah.
So I suppose we need to plan on the next maybe 60 days of getting the information out. So, and I suppose we'll just request proposals.
RFPs. Do we do that by newspaper, or is there?
I think the government website would be the best way to start out with.
How did we do it last? You weren't here when we did it last.
No, I
time.
wasn't here. I can look into the files. I'm sure they're somewhere in my office
You know,
and give you a good...
I think it was Kankakee and maybe the Pantograph. I think we did newspaper
In-
Champaign.
and I think if you're going to advertise something like this, we want to advertise it not to the general public so much as to the people in that industry. So their trade magazine, their whatever trade, because I'm sure there's something that y'all folks look at every 30 days in accounting. Not to finger anybody, but
Well, it's,
that's where the information should go, is to people in the industry, not the average Joe in the street that has no idea what we're talking about.
everybody think about it, we come up with a plan and put it in motion.
And Anita, too, maybe check with some other governments to see if they have ever asked for both a 3 and a 5.
What do you know?
Yeah. I mean, if If you have the same company giving you a 3 and a 5, you know, what are the pros and cons?
Half is doing 3s, half is doing 5s, we'll do a 4.
There you go.
Yeah.
God bless Russell.
Well, fine, some common ground.
It's almost a full month.
I think that was yesterday, right?
Okay. So what, we gonna do that in a month? Come on,
Yeah, that's, I think, at least in 60 days. There's a lot of other issues I know right now that's dealing with, so,
Yeah.
and I guess we'd probably shove it toward Anita to deal with it, so,
Yeah.
yeah. That'd be a good early start.
Yeah, we need to get it moving so they're not guessing.
Because we always wait till the last minute, and
Yeah.
this will give us some time.
That is something. Did anybody want to do anything with the claims here? We got to make a motion.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion on it? Call roll.
Schmidt? Alt?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Curtis?
Yes.
Raymond?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes. Old business? Any old business? Okay. Any new business?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Good look at Mama.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Yeah. That's phenomenal. 91% on a 5